There is a big video game strike going on right now. I believe it is basically being referred to as the video game strike of 2024. It will no doubt be known and passed on and written down in the history books that are read by our great-grandchildren. I'm, of course, being a little over the top. I'm joking around, but it is a big deal if you care about video games and the current development and basically the state of affairs of video game development in terms of AI protection. So this is something that is of very great concern right now, specifically to voice actors. Yeah, voice actors in video games have been really scared for their job recently, and rightfully so, because of course there's this big concern right now that AI could completely replace their jobs. AI has been making a lot of progress recently in general, so I don't think it's a leap to say that big video games, in order to cut costs, would do anything they could to get rid of voice actors and eventually just use AI. So that is why the 2024 video game strike has been happening ever since late July. So this has been happening since July 26 by a big US labor union known as SAG-AFTRA. Now essentially this is America's biggest union in terms of media companies. So movies, TV shows, music, video games. It is a very big deal. So for about, well, a little over a month now, a ton of these union members have gone on strike, specifically 2,600 members of this union. That means 2,600 people in America are not going to work and have not been going to work at their respective media, mainly video game companies, for over the past month now. Now, I remember when this started in July, it was definitely a pretty big deal, but I really feel like we haven't heard much about it until now. Now, obviously, the whole point of this union has been to get these companies to agree to their terms, and now it would seem that 80 video game projects have agreed to these terms. Yeah, this is in a bit of an update today from SAG-AFTRA. So actually yesterday, a company known as Lightspeed LA signed to these terms. Now they signed what is called an interim agreement, which essentially means that they agree to these AI protections. Now this is allowing them to bring all of their workers that were on strike back into the office, back to work. They are working right now on an open world game called Last Sentinel, which actually looks pretty cool. I hadn't heard about it until now. Maybe kind of a good way to get their foot in the door, kind of some free publicity here. But that is just one video game project that has now been resumed. Like I said, there are 80 of them recently that have been resumed because they agreed to these terms. So there are other studios as well. Again, 2 studios I haven't really heard of. They're not huge like Activision or anything like that, but it looks like the 2 others that were named by SAG-AFTRA were Studio Wildcard and Little Bat Games. Now it's worth noting it doesn't look like at this point SAG-AFTRA has released their entire, their full complete list of studios and game projects that have signed to this agreement. They've just kind of referenced these 3. I don't know why they haven't listed all of them. You would think they would, and maybe I'm just not seeing it. But overall, it does not seem like right now these are big companies. These are kind of just smaller, maybe referred to as like indie companies. Kind of the meat of this protest has been geared towards like Activision, EA, Disney. Yeah, bigger companies like that have still not signed to these terms, but it looks like the smaller ones are, and maybe that's because, you know, when they have a loss of work, it hits them harder than, you know, a Disney or an Activision. That's just kind of what comes to my mind. Maybe I'm wrong. One of the heads of SAG-AFTRA commented and basically said that these 80 studios that have signed on to these terms have basically showed that the majority of developers do agree with these terms. It's kind of just the bigger companies, or maybe just like a smaller group of people who have a bit more control. Yeah, basically it's this group of people that is kind of disagreeing with these terms and therefore necessitating this union in the first place. So it is cool to see that a lot of smaller companies are signing off on this. It will be interesting to see when or if the bigger companies will sign off on it, and if they don't, what is going to happen. It looks like SAG-AFTRA's last strike lasted for 11 months. I don't know how long this one's gonna last. We'll have to wait and see.